here with my friend Brendan Salter, who is much more nerdy and techie than I am. And he is going to give us a bit of a background to himself first, and then we're going to hop into some tech questions for cybersecurity protection for executive leadership within companies who essentially generally don't even have an understanding of what the repercussions are if there is something that is attacked into your system, or your email gets hacked, or your domain name doesn't get renewed, or whatever numerous problems that people will always face are because they just don't understand the world of the internet. So, Brendan, why don't you give us a quick little intro to yourself, your background, where you are working now, what your history is, and then we'll kind of hop into some back and forth questions.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Caleb. Thanks for having me. My name's Brendan Salter. I've been probably in the IT industry for around 10 years now, just full time. I've always been a nerd and into technology, but full-time job for about 10 years now. Formal training has been, I went to vocational school. I wouldn't call it any type of like fancy school. I went to Academy of Learning to do network engineer stuff. And through that, I learned a lot, but I didn't have the experience I needed. And so my father-in-law, he was the general manager of the company I work at now. He hired me as a salesperson. So I went from learning the tech to learning how to sell and the in-between. So I was a very good liaison between customers, clients, and our technicians who they spoke one type of lingo and our clients spoke the other, and I knew how to speak both. And I succeeded at that. And so last almost 10 years, I've been working there. Our company's been around for almost 40 years, but I've been there just multiple roles within the company recently. Not recently, but say the last 2 years. I've kind of just been shifting around. I made it all the way up to probably one of the senior account managers in our company, handling some pretty big firms. And I had some rather tragic stuff happen in my life, and I just couldn't handle the job at the moment. But I picked up a knack for SharePoint and Power Apps and Power Automate and Power BI and all of the automation stuff. I have a really logical brain, so the logic and the automation side kind of kicked in, and it really took on to it. So my role transitioned, and I went from sales to automation and power systems technician, and internal house technician. And kind of last 2 years, it's been going from that to working in Azure, helping to build our managed service platform in terms of what we sell to our clients, working on the agreements, working with my technology manager to get our tool set rolled out, because we now have a security tool set. And recently I'm shifting again. I'm going to be sales manager and automation manager in a company. So kind of all over the place. My thing about tech is you're always learning. So I have a very inquisitive mind. If I don't know something, I like to dig into it and figure it out, or learn or ask. Never one to be afraid to ask questions if I don't know it. And yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. We're changing. I guess part of what helps for this is I've seen our company transition from being just hardware sales and technical support on like a break fix basis to actually turning into a managed service provider, where we're concerned not just with helping you when things are broken, but planning ahead for things that can break, planning ahead to manage your network. And recently, security's been the biggest focus, because everything is AI. That's the buzzword, but everything has to be secured before you can really get into AI. So we're focused on security and managing our clients and making sure our clients are secure. And then we're going to take the step into AI.
So from the first part of kind of like the insight into the technology world, everyone kind of knows some of the key terms like your network.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at like a small to medium sized company,
Yep.
let's say they've got under 50 employees and they've got say 15 to 20 employees in the office and 15 to 20 employees kind of in the field doing service work, working from their laptop, from their truck or a coffee shop or maybe a job site. When we're talking about a network, what is that? Like, let's just break that down.
Sure.
And say, like, my mind goes to, well, if we're all in a cloud component, right? More so now than ever. Why do we need a network? Like we might have heard for the first time back in school. Why do we need a network, and what is a network?
Well, a network is just basically how all your data traverses between all your devices and how it reaches out to the web and how it comes back. That's the simplest way. And I guess the reason why you still need a network is you still get better speed hardwired in. You still have things that are printers that are much better hardwired in. You still typically have a group of people in an office that is a threat vector surface where someone can come in through your modem and they've got access to all the network, all the internal addressing connected to that. So a network is basically just your infrastructure, your digital technological infrastructure before it reaches the internet. And a lot of people are moving to the cloud, but there's still clients that I have that are some are hybrid, which is, they have their server, all of their it's called Active Directory, which is their Rolodex. It's on their server, and that's how it controls who has access to what. And that also stores their data. And so it's important to protect that. But they're also attached to cloud because a lot of people are using Microsoft or Google. For us as an MSP, we are a modern work solutions partner with Microsoft, or modern work solutions. I can't remember. Designated partner. So we resell Microsoft. So all of our clients have a portion, if not all of their business, inside Microsoft's data center, which is the cloud. So there's a lot of, but they have to still connect to their file server because cloud storage is still a bit expensive when it gets to certain things. So, network is just basically your technological pool of devices, whether it's outside of your office or inside of your office, how they connect, how they share information before it gets out.
So I guess the main component is obviously like things like Wi-Fi, right? So essentially inside of this this small to mid-sized company, when you look at their general components for when a client walks in, obviously most people want to connect to Wi-Fi, right? Because it's faster. So what are the kind of like the key elements of saying, if you are a small to medium-sized business and you are having customers come and go and you're having trades or suppliers come in and out, what is the best way to kind of set up your Wi-Fi system and security so that you're not kind of overexposing yourself out of just pure ignorance because you just don't know what you don't know? Like, should you have multiple Wi-Fi accounts, different servers, different modems? What would be something that you would say, hey, if you're talking to a client, you're doing a consult, and you're saying, hey, you're a small to medium sized business, you don't need like the grand deluxe supreme of everything, but you got to go from kind of like, you got the basic of like Bob set up the Wi-Fi when you moved over to your new building from TELUS, but there's not really anything. What would you recommend that somebody kind of make sure, or just kind of like make some notes where they're listening to this and they're like, well, maybe I need to ask some questions to somebody? What would you recommend in setting up an office when you have, transitionary people coming in and out, you've got new employees coming in? How do you set that up from a Wi-Fi perspective to be the most secure?
Yeah, so we'll take it the simplest form. We'll take one. So Wi-Fi is transmitted by a thing called an access point. There's a whole bunch of ones that are out there. Some are good, some are bad. Some have more settings, more features than others. For us as a company, we use Aruba and Ubiquity. Those are our two primary access points. But for this example, we could just say take one single Wi-Fi AP. If we're looking at securing our data and allowing transitory people to come in and out. Mandatory is separating your an internal network from your guest network. So a guest network is something that, it's kind of like McDonald's. You could go in, you just connect. You don't really need a password. You can have a password. But your internal Wi-Fi is password protected with a strong password. Second to that, so it's basically three components I would recommend just for this small piece. A good access point, a good switch, and a good firewall. A good switch will help you separate the networks into what are called VLANs, which are virtual local area networks. So you can essentially split your the two types of data that you want, your internal data on your secure network and your external data on the guest network, and they don't talk to each other ever. So they can't cross paths, they can't, be attacked from one or the other. They are just separate. And you can do that on a good switch, a managed switch. If you don't have a managed switch, a good firewall will allow you to do the same thing. And you can separate the networks, and they will go out to the internet on different ports or VLANs as well. And they will come in, and they won't ever really talk to each other. If you're on the internal network, any data you transmit out and transmit back in is never going to be seen by someone on a guest network. So that would be the simplest approach. Now it's obviously technical in how you set VLANs up and all that stuff. But if you're just setting up a simple network to allow people coming in and out to access the internet and protecting your data for all your office workers inside, you want to have an access point that can split up into a guest network and an internal network. You want to secure that internal network, and you want to have a switch and a firewall that can, one or the other, that can separate that stuff.
So let's say that you don't have those three components set up right, and you just have a single Wi-Fi.
Yep.
And someone comes in, you just give them the password, you trust them, right? You've known them for a while, and it's all tied into itself. What are a couple scenarios that could happen if someone who wanted to kind of screw you over,
Yep.
Or not even screw you over, but screw the guy who came to your office or an employee over, what could somebody with a little bit of tech skill do if they had the Wi-Fi password to your office, and they could essentially, like, what would be a couple kind of just really simple risks, risk exposure that you could take on by not having this set up?
Yeah, you can, if you're on the same network as all your other devices, you can see all those other devices on the network. So you can, depending on how technical this threat actor is, you can do a man-in-the-middle attack where you are intercepting any data going out and any data coming in, and you're seeing, passwords, all the details of emails, all that stuff, so you can be a man in the middle. Or another way is you can somehow get access to any of the devices on the network, and you can see what's on their drives, what's on their data. You can access them through however many means. So,
gotcha. Okay, so one of those things you talked about was obviously like the password component. Now, obviously, people have a lot of passwords.
Yep.
Sometimes passwords are literally just password 12344 because you got so many of them and you don't think it's that important. When it comes to having multiple softwares like a construction management software, an email, SharePoint login, social media tie-ins for marketing integrations, different Google associated passwords. What is a way that is really simple for just an average person in a firm to kind of mandate something, as far as like when they hire somebody, that they have a policy that says you use some kind of like password program. So you're not essentially having to use the same one. And what would be some of those options that people could access just as like they're listening now, just as a freebie? They can go get it. What would be something that they could get really quick that would work?
LastPass.
LastPass.
I use LastPass. And the reason is it's super easy to generate a strong password full of random characters. And I promise you that I don't know any of my passwords. I don't ever see them. I don't ever have them memorized. and they're all random. They're not the same. I mean, there's some personal ones that I kind of reuse over. Typically, if I have like, you know, access to a site that has no important information, it's just like, I don't know, Starbucks that has no credit card information. Like even that has credit card information. Like anything that doesn't have any type of information that can be stolen and used against you, then I would recycle a basic password. But for anything that contains private data, credit card, access to order things, access to data or information, I use LastPass. There's a generator at the bottom. It generates, you can specify if you want just letters and numbers, numbers and characters, however many characters you want, and then you just copy and paste it into there, and it remembers it.
Gotcha. Okay, so then the next question is obviously like I'm a big fan of Google,
Mm-hmm.
so I usually use like if there's an option on a website or a software that I buy, there's like a login with Google, kind of component, right? So how, in that perspective, when you're logging in like that's you've got two-point authentication, so it'll text you with text your phone or email you. How important is two-factor authentication when you're using Google or Apple, like logins, or Microsoft related logins and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
How important is turning that function on?
I can't overstate that it should be mandatory. I can't overstate it enough. It is the basic protection that you should have on your account. It should never be not two-factored. It's very easy to take a password. It's a lot harder to take a password and get permission from a phone that I have in my hand. But to your point, using Google and single sign-on and all that stuff, that's very helpful too. Like for Microsoft, because we're a Microsoft provider, we have Microsoft logins. A lot of my business applications, the line of software that I use for my business, I don't have to remember my password because I've logged in as my work account, and it's remembered that I've signed in this way properly, and all these different softwares can just connect to it like Google, but mine's Microsoft, and I don't have to sign in because I've already authenticated myself. But to your point, as a mandatory, it should be mandatory that you have multi-factor authentication turned on.
Okay, so we talked about Wi-Fi components having separate kind of public Wi-Fi, guest Wi-Fi, that can be password protected or not. You have your employee that's like, you never share the password with anybody. It's like a cardinal sin if you share the Wi-Fi password with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Are there controls you can have, let's say within an office, where you've got you got desktops that are permanently in the building, and then you've got some laptops that are coming and going? Is there a way to kind of provide the security that the individuals in the office, other than like a contract IT guy like yourself or an IT officer inside of a company, that no one even knows what the hell the Wi-Fi password is? Like there's some kind of request they have to get in. Is there a way to actually do that, or do you just have to kind of give everybody the password and say, here's our guest password, give this to guests. Here's our office password, keep it private. And then you're always like, if you got a disgruntled employee or whatever, you got to change the password all the time. Like, is there a way to not have to do that?
Yeah. So guest password, you can give it out. Like all of our employees know it. Like we also know our internal network, but we're a bunch of IT people, so we know how to handle it responsibly. But if you want to secure that password, when you're setting up that laptop, because generally they're not going to be setting it up, you connect to it and you don't give them the password. It should connect automatically. Like how many times have you came home and your phone or your device is just connected to your Wi-Fi automatically? So you set it up, you put the password in, you don't have to tell them.
So that essentially would be like when we're talking about that onboarding, that tech onboarding. So we've got the HR system. We hired Bob. Bob's a great guy. He's a construction management guy. Been doing it for 20 years. When he comes in, he essentially has that, he's got his laptop, he's got his work phone, he's got everything else. All that stuff is set up, all the passwords and the accounts. We've given user access to that email account. We got him an email account. We got him the password. We can essentially set up that laptop so that it's just ready to go, automatically connects whenever it's in Wi-Fi range. We can do that. Okay, so then the next question is how do you then protect about, if you're at the office and you bring in a cord to plug into the wall, and and when you plug that into your computer, do you have access to kind of anything? Like, do you have to like guard your plugs and put like locks and over the plastic, things on the wall?
Well, there's multiple ways to protect against that. You can put port blockers in the physical holes in the walls that have unused. They're called RJ45 jacks, Ethernet jacks. Or you can just not have them plugged into a switch on the other end. Because how it works is when you have a wall jack, there's a cable in that wall jack that goes all the way back to a patch panel. And that patch panel in the server rack, the network closet or whatever, is then patched into your switch. So if it's empty, you don't have to have it patching into anything. So if they plug in, they're not going to get internet because it's not. It's just a dead end on the other side. So there's that type of security you can do. You can do port, if you have the right type of switch, you can do port security on the switch. You're getting into more advanced things with switching, but you can do port blocking on switches if you just want to have it all populated, ready to go if you're going to plug in something else at some time, but you don't want to do it right now. But yeah, you don't have to have it plugged into the switch at all. It could be a dead end.
Gotcha. Okay. So then the next part is obviously about computers. Now, there's a lot of different computers. You and I have talked a lot about different computers. You've helped me buy computers for people before. You've helped me repair computers for stuff that we've had that is upgradable.
Yep.
So let's talk about laptops that you say, hey, these are great. Mm-hmm. They're not high-end gaming laptops because we're not using those for that. We're using it for a functional component of a person who's working in an office in a construction team. A lot of their stuff is cloud-based. A lot of their stuff is saved online. What would be a couple kind of computers that that you would recommend and say, hey, for ones that you and I have even talked about, kind of saying, hey, okay, I know your kind of price range is between $700 to $1,200. Mm-hmm. If we're talking in that range, and for key points, why don't you tell us a little bit about the different terms that when we're looking at computers,
right?
We don't know what those are.
Right.
We're trades guys.
Yeah.
We're business guys. We have no idea what the different, hard drive size and we have no idea what those things mean. So can you help us kind of understand when we're looking at a laptop, what are those key features that are advertised? What do they mean? What do the abbreviations stand for? What do they do? And then what would be, give us 2 or 3 computers, like laptops, that you would say, hey, this is a great laptop. If you're like, for me, a guy like me, you're saying, hey, Caleb, this laptop would cover all your needs. You wouldn't need to go over here. And if I did need to spend, $2,000 on a laptop or $1,500 on a laptop, why would I have to get that laptop as opposed to a $700 to $1,200 laptop? And would there be a big difference that would be, again, for a guy like me in construction, would we actually see a measurable difference in the performance of the computer using a $1,100 computer versus a $2,000 computer for the stuff that we're doing inside of a construction office, which again, a couple softwares, lots of emails. Right. But tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So let's start with the technology. The three big ones, which are your CPU, which is your processing, your RAM, which is your memory, and your hard drive. A CPU, if you want to break it down, you can think of it this way. Your hard drive is a library. It stores all your information. You can pull from these books left, right, and center. Your memory is your desk. So that's how much of those books, that information you could put on your desk and just have it open for you. And your CPU is how fast you can go and read through these books or process all of these books that are open and switch between the tasks and all that stuff. That's the simplest way to break down the biggest pieces of any laptop. Now, there's other features like, Wi-Fi. Does it have LAN? What kind of USBs does it have? Is it USB-C, Thunderbolt, all that stuff? But those are, I would say, the biggest performance features. So let's start with the CPU. CPU, they're getting crazy fast now. They can process ridiculous things. Typically for an average construction guy, unless you have a need, like something like an i5 or a Ryzen 5 processor chip is going to be fine, which is the middle of the road. So they're getting rid of the i3, but there used to be i3, i5, i7, and then i9 was like the highest. And there's multiple models within those CPUs, but an i5 is typically going to run you fine. They're fast, especially in the newest generation. They have enough cores to handle the workload and process all these different threads and all this stuff. That's for an average user. Like you have, obviously, if you're a CAD designer in a construction company, you're going to need a specific processor because you need the fastest single core speed versus multi-core speeds. For RAM, right now the technology is called DDR4, but they're moving to DDR5, which is the next generation, which is even faster. It's just, X amount of faster. But I would recommend nothing less than 16, especially if you're cloud-based. And the reason I say that is the more you use your web browser, the more memory you're going to use. Web browsers are resource hogs for memory. At any average day, I can have 10 to 20 windows open, tabs if you want to, and I'm consuming anywhere from 18 to 22 gigs of RAM. And I got other programs open. I got lots of programs open. I'm multitasking out the wazoo, but 16 is probably the minimum now. Used to be 8, but Windows 11 now takes more resource of your RAM, so it takes a bigger chunk of it. So then you need 16 to be able to multitask well. And then your hard drive, they're cheap now. They're not really expensive. Like 512, I remember it used to be like, $500, $600, $700. Now they're like $200, $300. They're not that. They're reasonably priced. You could start at 256 gigabytes, which is just the amount of storage. But 512 is probably okay as well. Obviously, if you have a lot of data that you want to store on your device, because a lot of cloud storage, you don't have to store things, right? Like for Microsoft, I cleaned it up today and I got rid of all my storage and I got rid of like 200 gigs of storage. It's still there, but it's just in the cloud now. I don't have it saved locally on my desktop. So you don't need as much storage as it used to back in the day when everything was saved locally. But you still probably will consume a little bit. So 256 is really a minimum. 512 a little bit on the safer side. But to get to your question as to why you would want to go with we'll call it business grade, because I sell business and enterprise laptops. I don't sell consumer grade. The biggest reason for those is two things: warranty and the parts inside. Now, you can get the same chip, the same CPU, you can get the same amount of RAM, you can get the same hard drive. The biggest difference between a consumer brand and a enterprise laptop brand is that all those tiny little pieces of soldering and transistors and all that stuff on the motherboard. With a consumer grade, they're just getting the cheapest part that they can at the day. With the enterprise business type of laptop, they've entered into a contract with a company to produce X amount of things. They're going under quality control. They're being tested. There's mil-spec testing. So all the laptops we sell have mil-spec testing on them, so they can be dropped from a certain height and survive. They can survive out in the cold to X amount of degrees. Things like minus 20, minus 30. I'd have to look that up. I can't remember. They can survive extreme heat, dust, all these things that they've been tested through, whereas consumer doesn't really necessarily go through that. And warranty. All the laptops we sell come with 3-year warranties, depot warranties. Obviously, if you crack your screen, that's a physical damage, but the parts and pieces inside come with 3-year warranties. Consumers don't do that. 6 months down the line, it goes, well, you might get a warranty, but you have to go through their process. You have to ship your laptop off. You have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks, get it back, and you're out 2, 3, 4 weeks without a laptop. For us, we are a registered Lenovo warranty repair depot. So you bring it to us, we look at it, we get the parts within a day or two, we fix it. Sometimes the parts take a little bit longer, we ship it out. back in your hands. So, you can get an Acer. You can get these, Asus models. But a lot of times you're paying, you get what you pay for. You get a less durable, especially for construction, you get a less durable machine. You get a less reliable machine. We have very, very low return rates in terms of like this machine died real quick. Usually we have a hard time selling new laptops because these laptops keep going 3, 4, 5 years down the road. They're still ticking. Like, why do we need to buy a new one? Well, because it's 5 years old. But why do we need to buy a new one? It's working great. Well, because it's 5 years old. Like, we have to convince them sometimes to do that.
So do you, when we're talking about laptops and I guess the speed of technology is obviously phenomenally faster year by year than 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So when you're looking at these computers and you're saying, okay, so I'm making a budget for an employee. I'm saying we're hiring someone. We're gonna give them a laptop. It has to be able to, project manager, superintendent kind of a guy, right? So we want it to be durable. We're saying, hey, if we're budgeting numbers, if we're saying we got, $1,000 to $1,500, is that enough to get a decent laptop?
Not one I'd recommend.
Okay.
I don't sell those.
So essentially, if we would be going from between that $1,500 to $2,500 on a laptop or more.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So for that component, if we're going to Best Buy and we're getting a Lenovo laptop, and let's say we've got 3 or 4 to go, we go and we buy them. It's a Best Buy deal. But if we're coming to a company like yours, and what is your company name again?
Northern Computer.
Northern Computer here in Kelowna.
Yep.
So if we're coming to a company like yours, we're saying, hey, we got 5 guys. We've got these ancient laptops. They're not working. We're having problems. We want to have these laptops set up properly. We want good laptops. If you were our kind of like IT guys and we were able to equip you with the information that you needed, passwords, domain, all that other stuff, is there a way to have those computers literally set up for those 5 guys so that if we're saying, can you just send them to 2 different locations? I got guys in Summerland or in Peachland and Summer, whatever, just Penticton. I got guys in Edmonton. Can you set the computers up like turnkey? So essentially I get it as a construction guy, shows up at the office. I got a call, hey, your computer's here, come get it. I come in and I get it. I have an email that says, hey, your password to log in your computer is 1587. And I open the computer and I type 1587 and that computer is set up for me. My email's on there. Are you guys able to kind of give that turnkey service for computers like that?
Yeah. It's a little bit more complicated than that. There's specific types of things that we have to do, but it's called Autopilot, Microsoft Autopilot, and Intune. And essentially we do it for clients all the time where we'll get a laptop in or we'll ship it to the location and we'll have, I can't remember if it's MAC address or if it's serial number. I'm pretty sure it's MAC address. We'll have that on file. And when we turn it in, we put it into their Intune and Autopilot portal, and we have all this stuff set up beforehand. So there's work.
What is Intune and Autopilot?
Right. So Autopilot is the ability to have a laptop white gloved to a site without having to ever touch it. Intune is the technology that Microsoft uses to set up all the things that would deploy to that PC once it gets turned on. So essentially the only thing you need when we have this configured right, now there's the caveat is you can't just come in and say, hey, we want to do this. We have to know your stuff. We have to build this portal, all that stuff. So there's work that goes into it. But the only thing you need is, a finger to turn it on and an internet connection. And once it turns on, it goes out to the internet. You connect to the internet. It goes out, says, hey, I'm looking, grabs its information, pulls it down, and starts booting up and configuring that profile.
So would that be like the Microsoft Office suite of so I can use Word and Excel and the kind of standard software downloads that you need, within that, and then all deployed. And then there's another tool, you've used it with me a few times, where I enter in a code to on some web portal, and all of a sudden Brendan's controlling my mouse.
Mhm.
What is that called? How does that work? And how secure is that? Um, just kind of in the open world, because I'm sure there's people who are enticed sometimes. Like you hear these stories where people get taken advantage of, and I'm here to fix whatever, and they turn over this control and they can't get it back. They can't, whatever that is. But when we're talking about the security, like how does that technologically, how is that working, and how do you make sure that that's safe?
Sure. So that's called an RMM. I think it's remote management module. I can't remember what the second M is. But basically, we would deploy that as well. That would be turned on. And we use one called Automate. And it comes with our PSA, which is like how we invoice, do all our service ticket tracking, time entry, all that stuff. But it integrates with that. And essentially, it's a little low resource piece of software that just pulse checks back to our database, which is held in ConnectWise. We use ConnectWise, held in their little database, but siloed for us. So they have separated things. And then essentially, you wouldn't have to install anything. We would just be able to go in and launch. If you needed tech support, we can launch into you. We can do stuff in the background. But you would never have to go and call this number and say, hey, I need help, and then download and talk to some random person. Like with our service, we put this on every device. And so if you need help, we know which device you are because you've logged in. We can see your serial number. We can see all your information about your laptop. And then we just say, hey, we're just going to connect, and we connect in. And then we talk to you as we're going through this stuff. Now, in the advent of things like deep fakes, voice impersonating, all that stuff, it's a little bit more, you have to be a little bit more cautious on just talking to anyone. So we've integrated into our systems, or we're just integrating into our systems, a way to authenticate both ways. So if someone's calling in to us, we can authenticate that they are who they say they are, not just someone pretending to be who they are. Say like, I lost my password. Can you help me reset it? Well, we can send an authorization code to them or to their boss and say, hey, they're looking for a password. Can you provide the code that was there? Or the other way around is, I don't know who you are. I asked for support, which means there's a ticket attached because we always provide a ticket number. I can challenge you on your authentication, and we'll be able to provide that we are who we say we are through our software. So there are ways. I don't fully understand how they secure it. I know there's people much smarter than me working on that. There's also people who are much smarter than me working on trying to counteract that. So, like for instance, there was one where the on-premise version, where if you had an on-premise server that you were storing all the information, it wasn't in the cloud, it was on-premise, and you're using the same thing, that had been compromised. So it's both ways, but I know the technology is the way that they encrypt the communication. It's encrypted, it's secure. So yeah, I don't have the brain to understand the details of how that works.
Yeah, totally fine. Neither do I. So I think so we kind of walked through the process of the simple stuff like, hey, here's some Wi-Fi stuff. Get a second, log on password. Like just make that standard in your company. If you're a business owner, if you're a real estate person,
have a guest user.
Have a guest user. Same thing for your house. If you're like a C-level kind of owner in a company, like you're using that laptop at the office, you're using that laptop at home, you got some pretty valuable stuff on your Microsoft servers, on whatever that is, right? Like, does that make sense? As just kind of like, because it's not like for a person who's in the game of construction and real estate, paying an extra $50 or $100 a month for a separate network at your house is not breaking the bank.
But you don't have to pay that much, to be honest.
You don't have to pay that much, but like to risk that, right? And again, with the simplicities of young kids that are just punking around, they're not trying to like rip off $2 million from you. Yeah. They just want to be a little bit of a crap head. right? And testing their technological boundaries of, hey, I got, they're kind of, dicking around,
Yeah.
right? That can really mess up a company as far as its server files being renamed, numbers being renamed,
Yeah.
like very simply, like, and I've made those mistakes inside
Yeah.
of Google Drive myself, where I'm like, oh crap, like there's no record of what's been created, what's been deleted, who was the last person in,
Right.
like, and I think that those are some of the things too that, from a construction point of view, like there's other things that small and mid-sized companies, real estate investors, guys listening to the show, ladies listening to the show, that they haven't even thought about it because they've been so focused on real estate and land development and reading bylaws and keeping up with official community plans and height restrictions and setbacks and
Stuff I don't know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So is like if a company wanted to engage with you because they're like, they're listening to this and they're like, oh crap, like I never really thought about that because it just takes one little shit,
Yeah.
right?
basically, Yeah.
One little guy,
One little oops.
and all of a sudden your system's and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not going to be this big obvious thing that your computer doesn't turn on. But like if a company wanted to like engage with Northern Computer on that and kind of say, hey, we need some help. We want to make sure we're secure. We're running a 50, 100, 200, $300 million company.
Right.
If things go wrong and people get access to our different softwares and our billing and our HR records and our employee files, our emails, that can be pretty damaging. And with this world that we have of today of connectivity, people can be hacking you from Beirut or South America or China or like the Ukraine or London. You have no idea, right, of how fast and it's crazy. I've known so many people now that have had, like, my wife got her bank account hacked, had $10,000 ripped out of her account.
Yikes.
Right? Mike, same thing that happened to him. There's been numerous things where people are just like that I know are like having emails compromised, Facebook accounts compromised, bank accounts, passwords, right? And there seems to be this like increase of technology, like you said, like our AI, but there's always that like, well, yeah, but someone's building an AI hacking software.
Absolutely.
That is just like type in their domain, type in an email address, and it'll start working to kind of figure out whatever it is. And it's working at the speed of computing, not the speed of a person manually saying, oh, like there's 6,300 password types that I possibly could figure out, and it's 9 letters, and like I'm going to enter them one at a time. A computer's entering 10,000 at a time, if not more, right, at speed. So if a company wanted to kind of like start taking those steps to mitigate that cybersecurity risk, pairing that with their computing efficiencies for how they communicate, where they find files, an audit of who's going in and looking, changing, creating limits to what employee 1 versus employee 10 can do and things. How would they go about integrating and connecting with Northern Computer, engaging with you, to kind of say what are the next steps and what would that look like?
Sure. Yeah. The first thing is always like you can visit our website, northerncomputer.ca, and there's a form in there saying we need some help. And then we reach out to you and kind of get an idea of what you're looking for. But the first thing we like to always do is have a meeting and figure out what you're trying to do. Have a conversation. Say, get to know your business, because we're not just trying to get business, but we also want to understand your business so that we can help you become more efficient and more secure. Through that process, we typically go down the road of doing what's called a gap assessment. And what that is we go on site, we can do it remotely, but we basically comb through your IT and we make notes of what software you have, what firewalls you have, what switches you have, what technology you're using to connect to your server, what technology you're using for your data, where your data is stored, how old is your equipment, that kind of thing. We basically have a whole checklist that we go through, and we measure where you lie on that scale compared to our standards. So for us, we have a tool set that we roll out to every device, which comprises of endpoint detection, DNS filters, web blockers, an antivirus, risky user detection, all of that stuff. A tool set that helps secure your device, because essentially nowadays it's the device that's being attacked, because we can secure your profile, if you want to call it, but also it's your device that we're worried about. So we put all the stuff on your device to make sure it's secure. And then once we've done that gap assessment, we figure out what is needed immediately before we can take you on as a client, because there's certain risks we can't accept, and what we can plan. So we're not trying to break the bank, but we do want to, if we do bring you on as a client and you agree, we do want to know that you're in agreement with us, that you recognize that you need to secure your data in your network better. You need to update on your technology. It's the weirdest thing. The one piece that can really damage your business is always the least thought about. Everyone leaves IT to the last little bit.
Yeah, until something happens.
Until something happens, and then they come crying. They come crying to us. They're like, what's this? I'm like, well, see this recommendation we made 3 years ago that you never took up on? That's what happened. So we like to provide recommendations right from the outset and say, this is what we need to get you onboarded, because we have a standard, and we have risk that we won't accept, and we need to mitigate that risk before we can accept you. Not to say that you don't, like, that's where you're sitting. Like, you could be fine. But once we get there, we start to go through and start to understand your business, and we start to really dig in and know, what are your pain points? We start to have conversations. You get an account manager, something that I used to do. And all our job is to do quarterly business reviews with you, to roadmap your IT budget. And that's not just like computers and laptops. That's like all your licensing for all the different software that you need. That's the ages of your laptops and the warranty statuses, and the refresh cycles. That's your internet bill, all of that stuff, all the stuff that relates to IT. We put it all into one thing so you can see your total IT budget. And then we start working with you quarter by quarter to plan ahead, plan your projects, plan the things that we can work towards to secure your network better. That's what we do. Kind of going back to before that, your question is like, what would a C-level person do? Number one is if they're connecting to server on-prem and they're at home, mandatory to have a VPN. You can't
VPN. What is a VPN?
It's a virtual private network. So what it does is it's an endpoint encryption. So you have the software on your device. Typically, it matches your firewall. Like we're a big proponent of selling 40 gate firewalls. So there's a 40 client VPN. And you use that software to connect to your firewall. And it's through encrypted keys and all of that stuff that's all set up by us. So you use your password to connect. And once you connect, there's an encrypted tunnel between basically your firewall and you, so much so that your laptop thinks it's sitting in the office. It's the same network. So that would be the basic thing. Like, you could create a separate wireless network for your kids if they're gaming. You could go to that nth degree. You don't have to pay $150 more for a second line. You could just separate your data. But a VPN would be mandatory. Same with multi-factor authentication.
So a VPN essentially is that the company buys this 40-wall VPN, and then essentially it would say if your mandatory component is no matter where you are using your phone, your tablet, your Android, whatever, any internet connectivity device.
Yep.
It's always through the VPN. It's on a company computer. You have a personal phone. There's a lot of guys that have a personal phone. They don't have a work phone anymore. They just have I have an app,
yeah.
Right? So I have like 4 different numbers that can call me.
Yeah.
But barely anybody gets my cell nowadays because I'm just tired of random messages and phone calls that I have like 110 unreturned text messages because
I'm glad you returned mine.
well, you're my computer nerd friend guy, so I make sure I do that. But so they set that up, and then essentially once they've kind of set that password and they call it triggered their computer, their device, they go home. It boom. If that computer turns on, it knows to
No.
You have to manually remember to do that.
You have to manually remember to turn on.
So is there a way to, because accountability is huge, especially with companies that get bigger, right? You got 100 employees.
Yeah. You can't access that data if you don't have it on.
Right? You can't access the data.
You can't access
the server, but you can still access your cloud stuff though.
Yeah. That's what MFA is, why MFA is important.
Gotcha. And MFA, the abbreviation again is
Multi-Factor Authentication.
Multi-Factor Authentication. Okay.
It's kind of like it goes between 2FA and MFA. Multi-factor can mean more than one. 2FA is just two-factor authentication. Multi-factor could be like, your password, your thumbprint, and a PIN. Whereas 2FA could just be your password and your thumbprint. Like on my phone, if I want to authenticate, I put my password in, it sends a request. I can just hit the button and unlock it with my phone, with my face. Say, this is my thing. Or I can enter a code and say, do you authenticate on your phone? Use my face. So MFA, 2FA, they're kind of interchangeable.
Okay, so a couple of just key kind of things. If someone's listening, they're saying like, what can I do tonight? Right. That I could do that is going to make my computer, my devices safer tonight.
Turn on MFA.
Okay, so you go through a list.
Yep. Turn on MFA.
Turn on MFA. Okay, what's next?
Stronger passwords.
Okay.
Don't have the same password for every single account. Especially if your Facebook account is the same as your banking account, change that. 100%. Facebook is easy to crack. Get a different password. Separate your passwords. Make it more complex. Use MFA. That's the simplest thing.
And LastPass.
LastPass, yeah. Use LastPass if you're going to create complex, unique accounts for each thing you log into, and you're not using so you log into Google, like Gmail, right? You have multi-factor authentication turned on. You have a complex password, and you have this account, and it says log in with your Gmail. Clicking that Gmail button's fine because you've logged in on your account. It can authenticate. It's the same type of authentication. You don't need a password for it. Now, if you have a login that doesn't have Gmail or that integration with it's called SSO, single sign-on, then make a complex password, have it different than the other ones, and use LastPass. Like all my accounts have random characters and letters in them that I couldn't remember for the life of me.
And then you just have one password. You have
one master password
to get into LastPass, and then that kind of keeps record for just like Google does or Apple does or your iPhone
or your browser. Yeah, Chrome, Edge, all that stuff. I wouldn't use Chrome and Edge for password saving. I don't inherently trust that. Some people do. I don't. I use LastPass because basically, if I forget that password, I'm pooped. Like you can't crack it unless you know that password. And if you don't know that password, you can't get in. There's no way to be like, hey, I forgot my password kind of thing. I accidentally did that to my wife one time, put all her passwords in a LastPass for her, and we both forgot the password. And all those passwords are in there. So that was a pain. We had to go and reset all the passwords. So
yeah, that would be painful. So then the last thing I wanted to touch really quick is that there are some devices. So one that I was told about is this device or this software. It's called CC Cleaner, and essentially run it on your computer. It kind of just cleans up different files. You can get a free version.
Yeah, you could.
I've used that multiple times, and I've actually seen an increase of efficiency and speed in my computer because it's like we cleaned up 47,000 different things that were unneeded. Right,
going back to my roots. Yeah, so I worked at London Jugs when I first started doing IT. Before Northern Computer, when I was fresh out of school and my boss couldn't hire me or didn't hire me yet, I worked at London Jugs as the repair tech at London Jugs. It was great. I loved it. It was, I got to work with computers all day. London Jugs is a great company. If you ever have kids who want to have a first job, get them to go apply there. They're a great company. But C Cleaner was one I used all the time. and Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes is a malware one. The thing with the paid version, so there's a paid version, a free version. The paid version you can run on a schedule. The free version, you have to manually run.
All manual, baby.
Yep. Malwarebytes is great. Windows Defender is even really good now. So that comes with every Windows device. You run Windows Defender. It caught, what was it? I had to help a client with the urgent offboarding of a manager who had embezzled money. And I ran the scan and found a Trojan horse on that, just in an email that was in their email. So it wasn't on the computer, but it was in the email. So it even scanned that. So, Windows Defender is great.
Okay, so tell me what is, like, everyone knows the story of a Trojan horse, right? But what is a Trojan horse in the tech world, and how can that really mess you up as a business owner?
Oh, geez. I've never seen one actually work. Trojan horses are basically like something that can infiltrate your computer as an email, as a legitimate piece of software, or as spoofing as a piece of software. And then at some point, it unleashes a virus. And that virus goes, and it can do whatever it wants. Like, it's inside of that package is whatever virus they've cooked up. It could be a keylogger, which records all your keystrokes. So it can record your passwords, your user information, like anything you type, it can record that. It could be a malware. It could be just a regular virus that infects your computer. Like, it's whatever's inside that package. And once it gets through your system looking like a legitimate thing, it unleashes the hell on your computer. I've never seen one happen. I've only seen, in my experience, not that it hasn't happened with our clients, just not me personally experiencing and having to work through the process with clients, an actual malware attack. And ransomware
and malware. What is malware?
Right. Malware is a little bit different than ransomware, where it doesn't hold you hostage with your data, but it's malicious software. So it is designed to cause havoc. It's designed to wreck your computer. It's designed to steal your information. There's so many forms of it that that's why it's called malware. It's malicious software. It's not like, there's one, like a worm virus, where it's a specific type of virus. But that's where Malwarebytes is great, is they have things like, antivirus has things called dictionaries. And basically what they're doing is they see a virus, they reverse engineer it, they get that signature, they throw it in their dictionary, and they look for that. That's what Malwarebytes does, is they have that dictionary for malware stuff, and they look for that. A lot of things you'll see when you run a scan is like pup software. I don't remember what pup software is, but if you see pup software, just delete it. It's not useful. So, again, like that kind of stuff, I'm not 100% familiar with. I don't see a lot of it. I haven't really explored it in a while. Like, I haven't been a desktop technician in quite some time. I deal mostly with like the Microsoft power systems now. So automation, all that stuff, where two-factor is important. Maintaining your profile is important, but I'm not necessarily a on the desktop setup kind of guy. But if you're talking about what can I do right now, 2FA, MFA, strong password, CCleaner, and Malwarebytes. Probably the easiest, or Defender, one of the two.
Sweet. Okay, so there's definitely lots more to talk about.
Yep.
As we expand and kind of try to equip people who are focused in the real estate world, that are running computers, lots of mobile, we're moving Vancouver to Edmonton, Calgary, all over North America, coffee shops, going in there and making sure that your computer with your private data, with client information, with software, with all other things, is as secure as possible.
If you're connecting to a public network, and you don't have a VPN, I would suggest getting a VPN, NordVPN, What did we use? I used ExpressVPN for a long time before I got 40 Client. Just in so much that it creates an encrypted signal where someone can't sit in a coffee shop and just be a man in the middle. Like it actually encrypts your information. So if you're in coffee shops a lot, I recommend, like, it's like $8 a month, $12 a month. Get ExpressVPN or NordVPN. I used ExpressVPN.
Okay, so we're definitely going to have you come back and explore a little bit more on the tech side, because I know there's going to be questions that are going to come in about certain things. I'll pass them on your way. And then maybe the next time we have a conversation, we'll dive in to a little bit more about what Northern Computer does, integrations, what an ideal client looks like, if it's a 2, 3, 4-man shop, a couple partners, what are some simple things that, you guys could do to kind of help them kind of maybe even talk about creating like a package for, real estate developers and guys that are small teams that are saying, hey, we do this. We don't even know the first thing about it, but we know we need it. And kind of having something that people can get access to through referencing our podcast. Just say, hey, yeah, I heard you on this. We have 5 computers. We have 2 desktops. We got 9 people. They got Norton, right? And their basic thing.
Yeah, we'd remove Norton. Norton slows your computer down.
Yeah, that's very much what I've experienced. So, all right, so you can check out northerncomputer.ca.
Yep.
You can go to the website. You can give them a call, and if you give them a call, ask to talk to Brendan Salter. Tell him that you heard us talking on our $2 to $20 million deal show, and he'll help you get pointed in the right direction.
Yep.
And informed and qualified to make sure that you don't lose your business to some weird cyber thing.
Yeah, we don't like that. We kind of take it as a personal insult that happens. I mean, you can't win them all. You're dealing with people, with budgets, with client, like you're dealing with people. So some people can't see the value in it and gets into this like, okay, well, this is what you need, but they don't want to,
Yeah. While the people that are listening to the show are very focused on systems and processes that reduce risk and increase levels of certainty, because there's enough risk in the real estate market between borrowing millions of dollars and partners and family dynamics to worry about internet stuff. So, okay, Brandon, thanks for coming on. We'll have you back
my pleasure,
in
Caleb.
a month or so, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.